Waiting is not simply the time that passes before something happens. For the human mind, waiting is an active state, even when it appears motionless from the outside. When there is no immediate result, when no clear resolution presents itself, the mind does not shut down. It reorganizes, it begins to operate differently. In everyday life, waiting is often perceived as an interruption, something that should end as quickly as possible, time that needs to be filled. People turn to distractions, screens, or unnecessary tasks, not because waiting is dangerous, but because the mind is not trained to remain in a state without clear direction. When a person is waiting, the body may remain still, but the mind constantly projects itself forward. It anticipates outcomes, it evaluates possibilities, it imagines consequences. Waiting turns the future into an active mental space, even when there is not enough information to support those projections. This process happens automatically. It does not require conscious intention. The mind is designed to predict, to reduce uncertainty, to prepare for what is unknown. When it does not receive clear external data, it uses internal material to fill the gap. This is why waiting often feels uncomfortable, not because of time itself, but because of the mental activity it triggers. Each moment feels longer because it is filled with thought. The mind does not rest during waiting. It works continuously. During waiting, attention becomes more sensitive. Small details gain importance, a distant sound, a slight movement, a barely noticeable change in the environment. The mind searches for signals that indicate something is about to happen. When those signals do not appear, the mind creates them. Memories blend with expectations. Past experiences influence how the present is interpreted. Waiting stops being neutral and becomes charged with subjective meaning. Time behaves differently during waiting. It loses its usual structure. Sometimes it expands. Other times it feels suspended. The clock continues to move forward, but internal experience no longer follows the same rhythm. Minutes can feel extended. Brief moments can feel endless. Waiting reveals a person's relationship with control. The stronger the need for immediate resolution, the more intense the experience of waiting becomes. The mind wants closure. It wants to complete processes and reach conclusions. Waiting prevents that closure, yet waiting is not a malfunction of the mental system. It is a natural condition. It is during waiting that internal patterns become visible, patterns that usually remain hidden beneath constant activity. When there is no external action, the mind becomes its own stage. Repetitive thoughts emerge. Unanswered questions repeat themselves. The mind revisits the same content again and again, searching for a solution that does not depend on it. This behavior is not a mistake. It is a strategy. The mind attempts to reduce uncertainty using the only material available, internal information. But that information is often incomplete, distorted, or influenced by emotion. Waiting also intensifies bodily perception. Physical sensations become more noticeable. Breathing, muscle tension, the internal rhythm of the body. Without external distractions, the body enters the field of attention. Many people interpret this intensification as anxiety. In reality, it is expanded awareness. What previously went unnoticed now becomes visible because it is no longer covered by constant stimulation. Waiting itself does not create discomfort. Discomfort arises from how the mind reacts to the absence of control, from the constant impulse to move ahead of the outcome, from the difficulty of remaining present without resolving what comes next. When there is no attempt to escape waiting, something begins to shift, not immediately, not dramatically, gradually. The mind starts to recognize that not everything requires immediate action. Waiting allows the impulse to do something to be observed, even when there is nothing to do. That impulse reveals deep habits of attention. the constant need to occupy time, to justify experience, to avoid stillness. But waiting is not emptiness. It is full of subtle processes, internal adjustments, micro-decisions, continuous evaluations that usually remain unnoticed because they are masked by external activity. In waiting, the mind reveals its tendency to live in the future, to dwell in what has not yet happened. This tendency is so habitual that it often goes unnoticed in daily life. Waiting interrupts that automatic movement. It forces the mind to confront the present moment, even when it feels uncomfortable. It does not allow easy escape forward. This is not about learning to enjoy waiting. It is not about forcing calm. It is about observing what happens when the experience is not modified, when it is not accelerated or avoided. Over time, waiting stops feeling like an obstacle and begins to feel like a space where the mind becomes visible without filters. That space does not offer quick answers. It does not speed up processes. It does not promise immediate relief, but it offers something else, clarity about how attention functions when it has no clear task. Waiting shows that much of mental discomfort does not come from events themselves, but from constant anticipation of what might happen. The mind often suffers more in imagination than in reality. When waiting is observed without resistance, the mind loses part of its urgency. Not because thinking stops, but because thought no longer occupies the entire field of experience. The environment does not change. Time continues to pass. External circumstances remain the same. But the relationship with waiting transforms. Waiting is not resolved. It is not eliminated. It is passed through. And by passing through it without hurry, without distraction, without trying to control it, something adjusts quietly. There is no specific moment when this happens, no clear signal. There is no defined conclusion. There is no evident closure. Waiting continues, and within that continuity the mind learns, without realizing it, that not everything needs to be anticipated, resolved, or understood immediately.